All right, let's go. How many of you have ever made a huge, disastrous mistake? Raise your hand. Yes. Okay, a few people out there are lying because you do not have your hands up. I see that. Well, honestly, I have made more mistakes than I can count. And my mistakes were actually my path to success. I've made mistakes that have cost me $5. I've made mistakes that have cost me $5 million. I've partnered with the wrong people. How many of you have partnered with the wrong people? Yeah. I have stayed too long in a job, in a relationship. Can you relate? Yeah. I have let fear of failure paralyze me. And I've quit too soon, to be honest, I've quit too soon. And I started making the mistakes at a very young age. I'll try to make it so it doesn't. This is me. I started making mistakes at 10 years old. This is my twin sister, Tracy. Yes. Listen, we had the same DNA, but the reality is, she was faster, she was stronger, she was better basically at everything we did. How many of you have a sibling like Tracy? Yes, trust me. Okay, well when we were 10, we took the standardized IQ test. And since we're genetically the same, I thought we would get the same result. Well, Tracy aced the test, and I failed it. So every week, Tracy would get bussed off to this talented and gifted school, and I would stay back on the curb, and I was devastated. Was I destined for failure at 10 years old? Honestly, that limiting belief held me back for so long. Something at 10 years old taught me that I was underqualified, and I believed it. What a huge mistake. The secret is, there are less qualified people than you doing the things that you want to do simply because they choose to believe in themselves. So I decided I'm going to write a book not about mistakes, all the mistakes that I've made. I was going to give mistakes a makeover. Because so many times we talk about the big win. I sold my company, I got a huge exit, but we don't talk about the messy middle, what happens inside, which are the challenges and the struggles that we go through every single day and the mistakes that we make. So my mistakes started very early on. Friends was the most popular show on TV. I was working for a hot internet startup. I thought Yahoo would be the biggest search engine ever. Anyway, I worked for a company called XDrive. We raised $100 million in funding, and I thought I was going to be a dot-com millionaire. I was like, this is great. I've got this. Nail it. Start of the internet. It was like being on a rocket ship, and success felt guaranteed, so I called every single one of my friends to come work with me. I'm like, we're all going to be millionaires. It's going to be great, and this is the end. It was incredible. I was on the 405 freeway in my Mitsubishi convertible, listening to U2's It's a Beautiful Day, and I thought this was like my dream job. Like it couldn't get any better than this. This rocket ship was taking off until the market crashed. And when the market crashed, I thought, well, we got $100 million. Like, it will not affect me. I got a great job. I'm in sales. I make all the money. And then one day my boss said, hey, Kim, can you see me in my office? And I thought, oh my goodness, the dot-com bubble burst. I walked in, he said, you're fired. And if you could do one thing on the way out, which is tell your team that they're fired too. And in an instant, my dream job became my worst nightmare. How many of you have ever had to fire your friends or someone really close to you? It is devastating. And honestly, some of them haven't talked to me ever since. So I would say, wasn't was not good. I went home, I crawled in my bed, I put the covers over my head, and I waited for the nightmare to pass. Unfortunately, the nightmare didn't pass, and eventually my roommate said, hey, come out. You can't stay in bed forever. So I went to California Pizza Kitchen, and they said, what are you going to do now? And I said, listen, I had a real job. It was job security. Honestly, I got a crazy idea. I'm going to start an internet company. And they're like, the internet is over. It's a fad. It's a graveyard of internet companies right now. This is early 2000s. You have no money, you have no experience, and you're broke. I was like, yeah. This is what happens. You're not ready. And I thought to myself, sure, I wasn't ready, but that's mistake number one. Waiting to feel 100% ready. That is the biggest mistake that anyone can make, because if you don't actually get past this mistake and you don't try, you will never be successful. So I called the one person who I thought could help with my limited cash flow, which was my nanny. My 82-year-old grandma, I called her, I said, Nanny, I got a big opportunity for you in the internet. It's gonna be huge. And she said, what is the internet? And I said, no, it's gonna be really big someday. Listen, she didn't know what I was talking about, but she lent me $10,000 to start my first company. And with that money, I did what every great entrepreneur, startup entrepreneur would do. I bought a one-way ticket to Hawaii, obviously. Now, it was where I could live rent-free with my boyfriend. And we sat at this kitchen table. And there's a pineapple on the side. I never left this kitchen table for 3 years. I maxed out all my credit cards, as every good entrepreneur does, right? Max out all the credit cards, live at my kitchen table. No, I was hustling, I was grinding. And honestly, I got stuck in analysis paralysis. Who here overthinks everything? Yes, overthinks your product, overthinks your pitch deck, overthinks your marketing, overthinks your social media. Can't post that, might post that, I don't know, right? Again, it just got stuck in my head, and I was too afraid to fail. And so I froze. And then one night, I learned this incredible rule by a Marine Corps general. It's called the 70% rule. And in battle, they give Marines a 70% rule, which is, if you have 70% of the information, informed information to make a decision, you act. And I thought, listen, if the Marines can do this, so can I. So I used the 70% rule in everything I did. And that made the biggest difference in my life. I still use that today, 70%. It allowed me to find the balance between action and analysis. And with that, I was able to move forward. So mistake number one is waiting to feel 100% ready. And the lesson I learned is start before you are ready. So right now we're thinking AI. Start before you're ready. Mistake number two, thinking I had to do it alone. I was a lone wolf on my entrepreneurial adventure because honestly, I had big ego. I didn't want to ask for help because I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness. Can any of you guys relate to that? You don't want to look stupid, so you just pretend you know when you actually don't know, which actually puts you back. One night, I was working 16-hour days. I finally cracked. I was working on a presentation, and my husband found me, or my boyfriend at that point, like lying on my computer, my face pressed up against the keyboard screen. He's like, you have to ask for help. This is not sustainable. So I called the one person I knew, Jerry, who had run a business before, and I was like, what should I do? And I thought he was going to give me some advice on strategy, market positioning. He's like, why didn't you call me sooner? A little late, but better late than never, right? He said, no one is successful alone. And that changed my way of thinking. And so from that moment on, I developed what I call the people pillars. One, having experienced mentors. Do you know that if you have a mentor, you are 5 times more likely to be promoted than someone that doesn't? 5 times. I mean, if nothing else you leave today, go get a mentor because that's going to increase your success by 5 times. 93% of self-made millionaires have mentors. And once I thought about it, every single successful person I knew had a mentor. Bill Gates had Warren Buffett. Mark Zuckerberg had Steve Jobs, and Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? I need to get myself a mentor. The best way to get a mentor, if any of you want to know, ask for coffee. 3 words, let's have coffee. It's the simplest way to find a connection with someone that can help you out. It can be virtual, it could be in person, obviously better, but this changed my life. And I just started going on coffee dates. I still do it all the time. So if you're not going on a coffee date to try to find a business partner, a connection, a mentor, this is a game changer. The second was having trusted family and friends, like my nanny. Trusted, not the ones that tell you you can't do it, the ones that tell you you can. Hiring an all-star team, and once I hired a team, my business took off. I made room at my kitchen table for a head of product, for a head of sales. I started moving the pineapple. And it was a game changer. And the fourth is like-minded peers, people that actually understand what you're going through on a day-to-day basis. My family doesn't have a clue what I'm going through. I wanted to know and be surrounded by people that had the same challenges that I had. These people pillars, like a house, gave me the support that I needed in order to be able to grow. The most significant thing in your life, if you change one thing in your life, besides getting a mentor, it will change your life, is surrounding yourself with the supportive, inspiring individuals that demand you live up to your greatest potential. And the reality is, what I suggest, draw the line. I call this my life audit. Are you ready? This is what you're gonna do. Make a list of the 5 to 10 people you spend the most time with. On the one side of the column, make a plus if they energize you, inspire you, encourage you to achieve what you want to achieve. And make a minus if they're naysayers and dream killers and critics and they tell you you can't do it and you won't do it. And then here's what you do. It's really simple. Audit them out. I know, it sounds really harsh, but honestly, you should try it. Once I had my people pillars, my business took off. And honestly, thinking I had to do it alone and changing it to the lesson of not having to do it alone and surrounding myself with the right people was the biggest lesson that I learned. Asking for help. It's so hard to ask for help, but it makes the biggest difference, and people actually want to help you. So I grew up with 2 entrepreneurial parents, and it was like being on a never-ending roller coaster ride. My dad was always chasing some big dream, betting the farm, and I was like, I just want some job security. At my dinner table, it was like group therapy. My dad would sit around and say, Kimmy, what is the worst thing that happened to you today? I was like 8, eating macaroni and cheese, and I'm like, Dad, what about school, sports, boys? I don't know. He didn't actually care, so he actually wanted to know what happened. So I tell him I failed test, or dog ate my homework, my teacher got mad. He would say, okay, great. And then he'd go to my brother and sister, because he was trying to normalize failure for me at a very young age, to take risks, to not be afraid that if I didn't do something well, that it was the end, because it wasn't. Which brings me to mistake number 3. Seeing failure as final. Failure is only final if you quit. If you look up failure, Google it, ChatGPT, you will see loser, washout, shame, disappointment. This is what you think when you hear a failure. When I think of failure, I think of setback, I think of roadblock, detour, challenge. Because the reality is, this is what people think success looks like. A straight line to the top. This is not what success looks like. This is what success looks like. It's a winding, zigzagging line of detours and dead ends. I've had more failures than I have had successes. I've been broke, I've been bankrupt, I've lost my biggest clients, I've lost my best employees, I haven't wanted to get out of bed in the morning. But as we say, failure is only final if you quit. So mistake number 3 is seeing failure as final. And the lesson I learned is not final. Quitting is. So you remember that startup at my kitchen table? very hard to get this photo, I'm telling you. It's like washed out because there is no iPhone at the time. That kitchen table startup became a $100 million company, which I sold in 2008, and then I sold again in 2014 for $235 million. And looking back, I took my nanny when I called her and I told her what had happened. She couldn't believe her $10,000 loan had turned in that kind of return. It's like crypto money. Nanny was so excited. I took her to Tuscany and we rented a Ferrari and she's like, this is the high life. She couldn't believe it. What an amazing gift to be able to give her. So the mistakes that made me a millionaire, number one, waiting to feel 100% ready. You will never be 100% ready. You just have to have the courage to start. Mistake number two is thinking you have to do it alone. It's important to surround yourself with supportive, inspiring individuals that demand you live up to greatest potential. And mistake number three is seeing failure as final. Failure is only final if you quit. And so today when I asked you if you've ever made a mistake, if you've ever failed, and many of you raised your hands and some of you lied and said you hadn't, failure is inevitable. It's like a storm, right? We fear the storm coming. We fear the mistake happening. We fear something bad's gonna happen. But the reality is, and the fun fact is that in a storm, if there's a storm coming, most of the animals run from the storm. But the buffalo runs into the storm. It leans in because they know that's the fastest way through it. So I challenge all of you to be brave, be courageous, and be the buffalo, right? Well, let's go. Time to go. We got things to do. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you.